one, action. If you're watching this, you're going to be a pediatrician, a parent, an OD, an optometrist, and you're going to find this very, very useful. This is the second in the edition of speaking to Dr. Al Lamont. He's a true expert on monocular vision. And then we're joined today by Ms. Nicholas over there, who is also involved with very, very deeply inside the marketing, so she's seen the uptake. Dr. Lamont, how are you today?
Very good. It's snowing here in Wisconsin and having a good time out in the sleighs.
Charlene, how are you today?
I'm doing really good, thank you. It's Thanksgiving week here in the U.S. So, do you guys celebrate something similar to Thanksgiving over in UK, Gary?
For sure. We're cousins, right?
It's not the same week, though. I think because, like Canada, they do it a little differently as well.
Now, something that unites everyone is we have two eyes, and that's connected by a brain. That unites pretty much every human being on the planet. And where we're going with this is that the study of binocular vision isn't at the ultimate, but it can really be life-changing. What we said with Dr. Lamont is there's a sweet spot for where you should get your eyes examined. And if you're a parent that doesn't wear glasses, then you might think, well, why do I need to send my children to get their eyes tested? So we were hoping to dive deep into where there's a sweet spot, to talk about some of the amazing things and the impact that you've had on people's lives. Dr. Lamont, you tell us your opinion on when is the sweet spot of getting a child in for an eye test?
Well, just from the authorities, which in our country is the American Optometric Association and the American Ophthalmological Association, they say, and I agree with them, that neurological development of the binocular vision occurs between 0 and 2.5 years. So I would say, if you're going at 3, you're actually almost past the time that you should be evaluated in that area. So I say between 2 and 3.
And of course, the healthcare professional will check the baby when it's just come out. It's quite a low priority, the site. So really want to get you there. Around 2.5, we're starting to learn words. So
right.
We have a very, you might have seen it when you go for an eye exam. It's a handheld telescope. And this thing, without you even speaking, we can tell a lot about the eye. But when we're starting to talk and we're starting to get involved with the eye test, you get a sticker. Do you give stickers?
Yes, of course. Everybody gives stickers.
So it's a fun experience for the child. Would you talk us through some of the tests that you would do for a 2.5, 3-year-old? Because I think that takes away a little bit of fear from parents watching, and where your sight test might be different from the regular.
Okay. Well, number one thing that we do for all kids is do what's called a cover test. And I'm not sure you're familiar with that, aren't you, Gary? A cover test. A cover test that just basically covers and uncovers an eye while the baby or young child is looking at either a finger or some object. And you can study how the eye motion goes when you're looking at this object. And as you cover and uncover, you can tell whether the eyes are crossing or looking outward or up or down or whichever direction they're going. Hopefully they're not going any direction. Hopefully they're staring at the thing that you're having them look at. However, if they are not, they're probably not teaming those eyes together as well as they should. And that's the number one test. There are other tests. You could get into all kinds of objective tests like the Hirschberg test, where you shine a light at the pupil and it reflects off, and you can tell where the eyes are pointed by the apex of that point where the reflex comes off the pupil. There are other pediatric tests that you can do, but we can do a lot of objective tests that allow us to find out their binocularity. And at very least, we can make sure that they are within the norms. It's like a screening, only much more in depth. We do not care necessarily too much about visual acuity, although we do want to make sure that one eye is not more farsighted than the other. That would pose a problem for binocularity as well. And what we can do there is usually cycloplegia, which is to put a drop in their eye to take away their ability to flex. And at that point, we can use a retinoscopy or autorefractor.
And the beauty of a mum is that she just sees the beauty in her child. Now, sometimes one of the eyes might not be so straight, and even in my family, I've spotted a child, and I said, look, we should get that looked at. and they don't see it. The parents don't see it because the love is so high. Now, sometimes with the bridge of the nose, it can be a little bit deceiving with that part there. So whether you're sure or not, you should just go in to your local doctor and just have a look. And because sometimes it's the development of the nose.
Yeah. The analogy I would give you there, Gary, and it's a good one, is that you do not test your own child's hearing, do you? No. Right?
Correct.
So therefore, why would you ever think of testing their eyes? It's just ridiculous. There's no screening methodology that an average person can use that would go this deep into their binocularity. And what we care about is we're talking 1 degree in the vertical. How would one tell? I was able to tell on you because of your head tilt, Gary, the other day.
And it's
you know what?
Tilted.
Right, exactly. So what I'm trying to say is you cannot tell major problems when there's only a minor degree of deviation in the vertical. So therefore, there's no screening. I can't tell you enough that screenings do not do any service to binocularity. And that's why we're missing it all these years. I've been out for 40 years. That's a long time, probably older than all of you out there. So basically, I have not seen any change in the way that the toddlers are really emphasized over the 40 years. And this is why I'm here, Gary, because I can no longer sit by and let it happen.
I love that. And that's so authentic. Charlene, have you got some questions there? I'm done with this week. I really wanted to get my teeth around, or my understanding of when is that sweet spot of when we should take our children for an eye exam, an eye test. Charlene?
Yeah, well, Dr. Lamont, one of the things that our team has been doing to make sure that this initiative really hits the mark. I know that you're very passionate about this. You've made a really huge investment of time and your own personal resources, and you built a 501c3 around this to empower the world to really invest in this initiative. So we took some of your guidance and we went into some groups, parents, and even some groups talking about vision disorders, just to see if parents really felt like they were properly educated about their children's vision development. And this almost seems to be an absolutely inaccessible conversation for parents, which is shocking because most people do take their kids to the pediatrician. Obviously, all kids have to get their shots. They're coming to the doctor regularly. Do you think children are getting complete eye exams in a pediatrician's office? And if not, can you maybe explain for those that are listening that maybe are just, parents, what would be different from an exam from an eye doctor versus from a pediatrician? Because I think the general idea is if I'm taking my kid to the pediatrician and they're not saying that anything's wrong with their eyes, why should I question anything differently?
Okay, well, I'm going to address that by saying a pediatrician's more into the organic issues with the eye, meaning whether the eye is intact, and whether the optic nerve looks normal, whether there's a cataract in play, because those are important. That's why I said to Gary earlier off camera that, there is a need for eye exams way before 3. However, we were going to slice it down to just binocular vision because that's where you need to have binocular vision intact by 3. We're not saying get your first eye exam by 3. We're saying that the first eye exam can be done by a pediatrician, but it has to be a pediatrician who's well aware of other things other than the organic. So I think my aim here is to also incorporate binocular vision testing in the pediatrician's office in some degree. I've asked pediatricians when they come in for their eye exams, what do you know about the eye? And they kind of snicker sometimes and they say, pretty much nothing. I'm like, no, that can't be right. That organically, I think they do understand the basics. But man, it's like going to your brother for doing your mechanics as opposed to a professional mechanic. Not that they're a bad person. They have to worry about the entire body of that individual. I only have to worry about their binocular vision, their organic vision of their eyes. That's why we're called specialists. We are specialists, and you need to have the most special part of your body, I consider your eyes, because they are who you're going to be for the rest of your life, and also can change your entire life as far as your vocation and as your comfort. Everything about your life can be changed through your eyes. So I think we're de-emphasizing, or not emphasizing, I should say, or under-emphasizing eyes in the area from 0 to 3. And that's my point.
And you have evidence of this. So you recently came to a community where there was a very successful optical business, and they hadn't really incorporated binocular vision, and you made this like a really big part of your exam. Can you talk a little bit about like what you feel might be evidence that you've uncovered this need in that community, and how has that kind of impacted that community out there?
Well, I went from an urban area, Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, to a really obviously very not rural, but north of the woods area where they actually have a lot of blue collar workers, which is absolutely fine. I find in the blue collar workers a major issue with binocularity. And I thought that was curious because I thought the distribution of binocularity issues should be across the board. Well, again, the only situated in an urban area, many of those urban people work with computers. Well, therefore, most of those problems have already been uncovered by either me or other practitioners. When I went to a non-urban area or more blue-collar assembly type area where they're assembling, for this instance, they're assembling motorcycles, they do not have to have those computer skills. Therefore, they have drifted, self-eliminated themselves from the type of jobs that do need that kind of binocularity. So here's the cool thing. The cool thing is I figured out the correlation between the blue-collar workers and the binocularity issues. I never thought that was the case, but I now know. I mean, I can't prove it, but I'll tell you what, it's scary fun to figure out that this binocularity now is absolutely bigger in blue-collar areas because they have chosen to not do jobs that require binocularity. It just makes sense. If you're not a good ball player, you do not go out for the MBA. You just don't because you can't. So basically what happens is we're affecting people's vocational lives and their comfort in reading and all their joy of reading. And those out there that like to read, if you can't read, how can you enjoy the joy of reading? So this is really cool, the stuff that I've been coming up with, just changing my venue. I didn't realize this was an accidental thing. Then all of a sudden I realized that the people in this new community I'm in need me more than the people I was in because the incidence is much higher.
It's very interesting because there's a lot of people that are listening that are going to be optometrists, and they are going to be students looking about where they're going to practice and understanding your community and like some of the things that are impacting them when it comes to binocularity, like you said, whether they're working closely with computers or not working closely at all. And the opposite end of both ends really helps you to prepare for the demands of your community. So I really love that as an optometrist, you don't just do your job, but you actually try to get understanding of why these things are happening. That's really great. I hope a lot of people are listening that are practicing optometrists because it's a way to make your job fun, right? Like to actually use that scientist part of you to say, okay, why is this happening?
Yep, it was really cool because I didn't expect it. I wasn't expecting it because I'd done it so long. I thought I'd seen the absolute bell curve, in the middle type of thing where the binocularity was in the middle. Well, I found out there is a skewed, standard deviation of bell curve of binocularity in a community where there's more blue collar workers. And I don't have, absolute data, but I'll tell you what, we've increased our business by 400% in this one little optical, like Gary can relate to, a small little, family-owned optical. This gentleman that had hired me is absolutely thrilled from a financial standpoint. So, I mean, you got to look at all aspects of this thing. I don't look at it that way because I'm a salaried employee, but I do look at it from a standpoint of community service, and he looks at it from a standpoint of profitability and viability as far as the practice.
Well, I hope if you've been watching this, that one take home here is an optometrist is an expert in binocular vision. There is no one else that can quite do that. A general practitioner will only spend 6, 7, 8 weeks, 9 weeks through all their years of study on the eye. This is an expert in eye care. We hope that next week when we come back, we will have a special guest, because the more guests that come on here, the more diverse the questions. So if you've enjoyed today, please reach out to us. We want to hear your questions for Dr. Lamont. This will just get more interesting, more in depth. If you're an eye care professional and you need to know a little bit more about what Dr. Lamont does in his practice to change lives, please again reach out we'd love to help you be part of our community. So that's it for me. I think we should always leave the last word to Charlene and Dr. Lamont. Charlene, do you have a last word for the audience?
I do. And, our group is growing very quickly. There's a lot of optometrists coming on board. So this is kind of a question we've been wanting to pose in the group, but we've been waiting because it's a new group. You don't always want people on the spot to interact. So I'll let you be the leader in this, and then we'll share this in the social media group. How would you explain binocular vision to a 3-year-old? And then how would you explain it to a parent of a 3-year-old? I think this is really great, to help us all learn how to communicate and, just from learning from each other. What would be your answer to that question?
Are you talking to me, Charlene?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I didn't know. Well, I'm not sure I would explain it to a 3-year-old at all, because a 3-year-old is going to understand the binocularity. I probably would just not explain it much to the 3-year-old, but to the parents of the 3-year-old, what I would say is if they do have poor binocularity, you are strictly limiting not only the fact that they could lose an eye, literally lose the vision in the eye, not so much blindness, but underdevelopment. Similar if you put a plug of cotton in one of their ears and then had them try to learn language. It would really mess up their language and also mess up that ear for life. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about development. That's why the name of my company is called childrenandvisiondevelopment.org, because that is exactly what it is. If you can impact a child when they're this young, you can impact the rest of their life. And I think optometry plays a key role, because we are not ophthalmology, who's generally surgically involved. This is not surgery. It isn't brain surgery, it's brain development. And that's the key.
That is awesome. And I love that you not only broke it down simply, but you gave a visual. I would have never thought to explain, because it's ironically, isn't it funny that it's easier for us to understand if you put a piece of cotton in one ear, it's going to be harder to understand language than it is to understand if you cover one eye, it's going to be harder to learn how to see. I think that there's so many parts of the body that we understand very, very intensely, but for some reason the eyes is just very elusive. I'll pass it back to you, Gary. Thank you for giving me that last little question to ask for the.
This is a wrap for this week. I'm so excited where we're going to get to. You're all following us on our journey along to understanding binocular vision. The mission is that every single optometrist, every single patient, every single pediatrician really gets to understand. I've been prescribed. I'm going to have my new glasses in a few weeks. I'm a walking case study for what Dr. Lamont is good at. So you'll be giving you updates on that too. So please tune in to next week. Reach out to us. You dictate the conversation. We want to hear from you, and let's see what direction you send us. Have a great week.
Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming.
Have a great week.
Have a great week.